Have you ever like looked into the whole? I don't believe this, but the flat Earth theory. Have you heard that?
I haven't really followed it. I've heard.
I mean, if you like at first you're like, there's no way, and I really don't think it is.
Huh.
But when you watch the thing, you're like,
Yeah.
it could be. And then you really start like wondering, like, what do I really fucking know? Like, I don't really know anything.
Right.
Like, you really know there's space?
Yeah.
Do you really know that they went to the moon? I mean, it seems like plausible.
Right.
But you don't really know.
Sure. Exactly. That's exactly my point.
You've never been there.
That's exactly my point.
I mean, for all you know, I mean, not to get really weird with it, but technically,
a lot of things we don't know, man. A lot, actually, even the things that you wake up in the morning and you say, oh, I know how to do this, but you know only that small portion of what that
and also of what you've been shown. The monkey see, monkey do concept. It's like, you wouldn't have I mean, I come up with a lot of shit. Like, trust me. No, really.
I do too.
Like, a lot of stuff I come up with and nobody else that I talk to, like, it's... But then you might find someone else who came up with the same thing.
Right.
But, like, I wasn't taught it. Like, either it was in me or I figured it out. Yeah, mentally. Yeah, I'm just like, that could be that. There's a possibility right there. You see a problem and you automatically come up with the obvious solution. Right. And someone else also did, but you didn't, like, read it in a book or anything like that. It's just intuitive, right? So, I mean... Yeah. So I know things can be invented. I know things, humans do have the capability, but I mean 99.9% of the shit you do, you learned. Well, more than 99%. I mean, like, listen to, like, just even speaking. Yeah. Having a language.
But what amazes me...
What's up, brother man?
Hey, good morning, man. Good morning. Good morning. You guys are packing?
No, I'm just going to clean up a little bit.
Are you?
No, I'm just waking up.
Just taking some little footage.
So, what amazes me is how did we get from a original caveman to having it, like you're saying, having the capability of building nuclear weapons and then dropping it on, Hiroshima? I mean, how did that mind frame of what you were describing, actually, which is 100% correct, and I agree with it, where the caveman, the original thought was, how can I get the other guy's woman? Or how can I run over the other tribe?
Of course.
Right.
Same as a dog or same as anything.
Exactly.
It's nature,
that concept has been building all throughout the human, existence.
Evolution, yeah.
Evolution, right.
I mean, whether you believe in evolution or not, things do evolve.
Right.
Yeah.
But how did we get into... Because this is the kind of thing that really mind-boggling.
But also then, I mean, if you really, add to it the whole ancient alien thing, like if you look at, like, you've seen the shows, like Beckley Tepe and fucking, Saxe Woman and all those places, they're like, what? Like, they're that old and they're like totally fallen down, but they're like made perfectly with circular saws, right?
True.
You can see circular saw blades in the rocks, a lot of them, right? And so
rock art, they call it. Today they call it rock art.
Well, no, these are the megaliths. The megaliths, the blocks.
I see.
Massive stone blocks, right?
Right.
But they're like cut. So they're not cut like this. They can actually see the saw blade marks. Like circular saw blade cuts, right? But yet in Americas they never had a wheel. The whole continent's never invented a wheel. But yet they have these blocks down there which have saw blades, which is obviously a circular saw, and you don't have a circular saw unless you have some form of wheels.
So how did that come about?
I don't know. So apparently we came up with it before.
Huh.
I almost like, sometimes I wonder if it's not like a flower, right? Like humanity, like a flower's growing and growing and growing. If you're like living on the edge of the flower, you're like, oh my God, the flower's just gonna get bigger and bigger. And then it's like, the flower's done, and then it dies, and it falls to the ground, and it makes a seed. But so the flower really wasn't even the thing. It was just a way to bring. So let's say the flower of civilization, for example, is it gets to a certain point where we pretty much blow ourselves up. every time.
Like,
exactly. Like we're like, no, we're gonna make it this time, bro. We're gonna power through, and then right when we get to the top, it's like, oh, it's built in.
We're going to.
It's built. It's like we blow ourselves up, and then we go back to the Stone Age. Yeah. And then we find things, and certain stuff is hidden, and people carry through. Right. And there's priest classes of people that pass the knowledge down of, and they're like, we can't let everybody know this shit because that's our advantage. Right. Like it would be silly, you know. Like a lot of people are like, we should know if there are aliens. The government should tell us. Like, in reality, if it was your country, let's say if you weren't like Jesus and you healed the world, but if you actually had a country.
And the power.
And you found an alien spaceship. Fuck no, you wouldn't tell anybody.
No.
That's your gig. Yeah. That's your whole deal.
That's right.
It's like if you find oil over here, you're not like, hey guys, I got oil.
Yeah. Like, you know. Exactly. You're getting
you harness and you hide it. You know? And so I wouldn't even be mad at them, really. I mean, they have to. Yeah. Like, what would you do? Like, let's say if you found life on another planet, right? Right. It'd be the same thing for technology. Like, it would be, you'd say, humanity deserves to know, but you're like, dude, we're coming up with so much shit based on what we're seeing on this planet. If we let everyone know, we're going to lose our whole edge.
Exactly. But you know, the amazing part is how we've managed to what you're describing, the eventual outcome of what we are discussing is basically our own destruction.
Yeah, theoretically, I mean, but it might be possible that we one time do pull it off and actually get to other planets, you know, or maybe we have all done that already.
I see.
You know what I mean?
I see.
Because, like, another thing that I think is funny, like philosophically, is, you know, people say, oh, well, life started on Earth, right? Well, it started here, you know, like just either, you know, I think it's more plausible that either aliens made it or God made it or any other explanation than it just came about here. Right. Like imagine you look at a tree, see that tree over there? Right. And you're like, well, how did the tree get there? You're like, it just came up as a tree. No single form of life you've ever seen came from where it was. It was always seeded. There was always a seed. True. There was always a mother and a mother and a mother and a mother and a father. Thousands and thousands. That piece of grass has gone through its life cycle billions, it's millions, I don't know how long, but a lot of times it's gone through it. You don't just look at it and assume that that's the only one and it came from where it is. That's ridiculous. So the cool thing would be is if actually out in space, instead of there being like this crazy like life forms that are so weird, it would be like almost more like just going to like South America versus Africa. I see. Or like from Europe to America. Like more than that, but not so much that you couldn't eat it. Like it would still be DNA. Right. It would still be somewhat related. Like you could still shoot a thing and it would be meat and you'd eat it. I got you. You know what I mean? And there would still be things flying and there'd still be things burrowing and there'd still be, you'd kind of have like a basic template of what, you know, for example, like. The foundation. Well, yeah, like convergent evolution as opposed to divergent. Like a shark is a fish, but then a whale supposedly is, you know, a mammal that went back into the ocean, right? So, but they end up looking similar, quite similar. That's right. That you'll have, because that's the most perfect swimming shape, like a tuna. Right. That's the shape. So somewhere on this other planet there'll be another one, and you look at it and you pretty much know what it did by the shape of it. You're like, well, that's probably one of those things. You know, I'm sure you'd be wrong a lot, but you'd have an idea. You have an idea. It's true. It's mind-boggling. Yeah, and you could probably look at things that are predators, and you probably say, well, they're probably not poisonous because they don't need to be. Right? You see small things that are barely hanging on, you're like, it could be poisonous. Especially if it's bright colored. You're like, it's trying to, you know, like, I don't know, you eat it. If you get to the other planet is what I'm saying, you know. But I mean, when you consider like what it was like for the European world to find America, you know, that was literally like finding another planet. It was. It was like that was your whole planet, and you found a whole other one, and like. But what's even weirder is there was already people there. That's right. At the time, it seemed like implausible, you know. So I don't know. I mean, maybe we do go around, and maybe you know, maybe there's more, but apparently they're very far away, or maybe they're just telling us that.
I see.
It could be possible.
Yeah, but they could
again,
be I don't know among us, but...
Well, again, it would be like the whole, like, the need-to-know basis. Like, do we really need to know that there's life on Mars, or is that something the Martians like to keep pretty secret?
Exactly.
They're like, oh, yeah, we got mad shit on Mars, but we're not going to let the average human know and start being like, fuck that shit, we're going up there. Like, there's nothing there, bro. There's nothing there. Don't worry about it. Here's a picture of a rock. Look, there it is. That's it. That's Mars right there, bro. Look at it. Oh, we just landed on it.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. Nothing at all. Don't turn the camera.
That's true, man. That's true. Yeah,
What's even funnier, I mean, if you really go down that road too, is like, it's weird that the moon never shows its other side. You know, that's weird. You know, but yet it does get sun. It's not dark.
Right.
You know that, right?
Right.
So it's always like this to us.
Right.
But it still gets sunlight.
Right. But the other side of it,
you just never see it. You don't know what the fuck's over there either.
Yeah, my wife likes to call me, you know, you're into conspiracy theories.
Oh, it's called thinking.
It's called thinking, exactly. Exactly. And I understand that conspiracy theory is what the elite tells you because they don't want you to think.
Well, there's that, it's like, hey, look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. But if you question stuff, then you're automatically
it's a label. You know, the CIA came up with that, right? They did.
They did.
For Kennedy, the Kennedy assassination.
Oh, yeah.
When people started saying, I don't know, I think there was two people. The word was there's more than one person. And that was when the conspiracy of the conspiring of the two individuals as opposed to the lone wolf.
I see.
A nothing, a dead end. He's dead, we shot him, that's the end of the story. Like Epstein, right?
I see.
So it's like, that's the story, and it's dead.
Yeah, it's dead. Yeah.
And there's no more anything. It was him by himself, and that was all there was.
Yeah.
And it's over now.
Yeah.
And he's dead.
Don't try to fuck around.
It's a dead end,
right? Yeah.
And the message too is like, you really want to keep digging, bro? Keep digging.
Yeah.
But
you what happened and accept it as is. Fuck around.
But yeah, no, conspiracy theory, like that's, so like they actually invented, and the word tinfoil hat wearing, because you're supposed to be wearing a tinfoil hat to block the electric waves, because they're controlling your mind, right?
I see.
Which makes me want a tinfoil hat.
Right.
Because if they say I'd be a lunatic to have one, maybe I need one, right? I want to create like hats, like these baseball caps, and they're called TFH. I've already thought about this, tinfoil hat. So it's like, it's kind of like something that conspiracy theorists wear as a joke, but also it's like, everything they tell you not to do is pretty much what you should be doing. So if they're like, what are you going to do now? Start wearing a tinfoil hat? Yeah, I am going to start wearing a fucking tinfoil hat as soon as you put it that way.
The Kennedy, I mean, there are so many events in the war that goes, even, you know, when you refer to Iran, you know, I look at the history from 1907, where the British, you know, basically discovered oil, you know, in Iran. And since then, you look at what is presented to you in the history books anyway, you know, because I've only been alive since 59, and oil was discovered, you know, 1907. When you look at the history...
It was?
1907,
I don't know that.
And you look at the history, you go, wait a minute, the British were there during this First World War. They decided who should be in power, you know, and if that power structure tried to kind of do anything for the, you know, let's say, if they wanted to, for the benefit of the people, here comes the letter from Queen Elizabeth that says, we politely ask you to leave the country, to abduct to South Africa.
To who?
Like
to the Shah?
Reza Shah, to the Shah's father.
Oh, what was his name? Shah?
Reza Shah.
Reza Shah?
Reza Shah. And he tried to get rid of all this crazy clergy, you know, powers. They were trying to influence the, you know, the ownership of the land. He tried to get rid of them, and he was very, very, you know, thoughtful about kind of pushing the country completely, to, you know, getting it westernized, and get rid of all this religious,
And they didn't want that.
They didn't want that, so they asked him, the Queen Elizabeth, I mean, these are documented. Again, this.
No, I believe it. I've heard similar stuff.
Yeah, they asked him to go to South Africa, basically, and then they brought, they basically gave power to all this little clergy, to brainwash,
And see, it's the same thing as the aliens. See,
Right.
so what the American does in a poorer area,
Right.
first of all, the money's made up out of nothing.
Right.
The money basically is just a certificate of like, we won't fuck you up. It's like
Exactly.
basically because there's no actual money behind it. It's just like, well, if you don't like our dollars, we can kill you.
Exactly.
Because that's what they did to Saddam Hussein.
Right.
You know?
Right. Exactly.
Like,
it was all about the,
Because he wanted to go away from the petrodollar,
There you
right?
go.
Which the
There you go.
petrodollar.
You know about it. You
Yeah.
see, this is never discussed. Now that you mention,
Yeah.
this is you would never hear that.
And
really
also
discussed.
Gaddafi too.
Yeah.
Gaddafi's like, hey, why don't we have our own money?
Yeah.
And they're like,
Really?
your own money.
Exactly.
Nice.
Exactly.
That's funny. Look at this guy. Look
Yeah.
at this guy. He's a fucking clown over here.
exactly.
You serious? You want right? Really? I don't think that's a good idea, bro. No, we're gonna do it. It's gonna be good. It's like it's not gonna be good.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work out.
And the funniest thing.
So again, so it's like the space cash thing. It's
It
like,
is.
or just so you just go in and you're using like nothing,
Right.
but you're able to influence by giving the nothing to different people.
Exactly.
Like you're like this guy, and especially that's how Satan rules the world because he finds the person he knows is the biggest sellout. Like if he knew I'm not pure, but
Right.
I'm purer than a lot of
I see,
motherfuckers.
I see.
You know what I mean? Like
I see.
if it was like, come on, sell out the whole human race, and I'll give you this, I'll be like, nah, dude,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be that guy.
It's referred as having your own Uncle Tom, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, even worse. I mean, it's one thing. Like being an Uncle Tom is like like you're a sellout, but you're not like selling the
Right.
whole human race out.
Right. Right.
That's another
But
level.
you're selling a good portion of your country in order to benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But from an alien perspective, like the real power elite, if they really knew, like, yes, I'm Satan, and yes, I'm running the shit, but you don't give a fuck. You're a fucking psychopath anyway.
Right.
You'll do anything for power, so
Right.
why do you care?
Right.
You're like, I don't care. You're right.
Yeah.
And I like you because you're like me. We don't give a fuck. Fuck them. Like, that's right. Fuck them. We don't care. Right. Perfect.
That's right.
But if he talks to me, he'll be like, I'll be like, I don't know, but what if like,
Yeah.
conversation's done with you, move on to somebody you can already see is a total cock.
Right.
You know, you're like, look at that guy.
Right.
Total bastard. That's someone I can talk to.
True. True.
You know, so that's who you give the power to, is the most lowliest fuckface.
Satan.
Yeah.
Satan-minded.
Yeah,
Minded.
just self-centered
That's right.
piece of shit out there. Yeah. You might even test him. You might say, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $200 billion if you kill your mother.
Yeah. It's so
200 billion? How much? 200 billion?
Yeah.
They're not asking like, kill my mother. They're like, 200 billion.
Yeah.
That's the question. They're like,
Right.
okay, yeah, right here, bro.
Right.
No brainer.
Yeah. I'll do it.
All right, now we can talk business. You know,
Yeah.
if you're that guy,
it's true.
then now I can really have a
It's so
conversation with you.
interesting. You mentioned that you know about the petrodollar with Saddam because nobody ever.
Well, not nobody, but not in the mainstream.
Not
Yeah,
in the
a lot of the
mainstream,
people
right.
know about
But
it.
The same thing with the Shah, actually. 1953, when they kind of brought him to power, the British did basically, got rid of his father, brought him to power. The BP. This is history, but again, history, is open to kind of negotiation. They had him sign a
It's in the eye of
contract.
the beholder.
Yeah, they had him sign a contract that gave 83% of the oil profit
BP.
to the BP. 83%. And
British
people-
Petroleum.
this
Which
is-
who owns that? Is the Rothschilds involved in it or what?
I think Rothschild is involved in it, yes,
Mm.
and Rockefeller, and so and we were wondering. Of course, we were kids back in 1977. When I went to UK, I was 16 years old. Later on, as time goes on, we go, where did all this clergy? I mean, how did they get all the financial support? How did that?
And nobody really wanted it.
Nobody was interested in them. People,
Yeah,
didn't.
they just wanted to live like, hey, let's party. Hey,
let's party.
we're inventing cars. All right, let's have some
Exactly.
cars. All right, hey.
Exactly. How
More
did
like
this-
America, right?
How did these people all of a sudden came in, acquired all the power, set up? came up with a new constitution, set up all the rules and regulations. But when you leave your house, you're supposed to,
Yeah. Do you think that the Iranian people will ever throw it off, or do you think that the foreign influence is too hardcore and they'll end up losing regardless?
Very good question. Very good question. You already know that Uncle Tom that I was referring to.
Yeah.
You always have a portion of the military or
as long as they get power, they're good.
I think it's the power. I think it has to be the power.
Yeah.
Because you look at the regular people, and this was an interesting subject because I was in Bishop one time, and this gentleman that worked in the kind of a visitor center, he started talking about Iran and stuff, and he goes, I wondered, why there isn't really much uprising against, even though the people don't like the regime, how come there isn't much uprising? And I was thinking to myself, if I wake up in the morning, I woke up this morning, right, from my tent, and I don't like the Mexican government, for example, I don't like the Mexican government. What is the first thing on my mind? Am I going to get some water to drink and some bread to eat? Or am I going to go...
Water, bread.
Or am I going to start writing slogans and...
Water and bread, right?
Water and bread, right?
Yeah,
water and
for
bread
sure, 100%,
first, right?
yeah.
So it's got to a point in Iran where people are saying, man, there is a lot of fucking foreign influence in the, in the politics of Iran. Not the regular life of people, but in the... So they've kind of sat back and waiting it out, waiting it out in the sense that hopefully with the younger generation, Iran has a lot of young,
right. But then again, they can be very easily swayed.
Swayed too, very true.
Because then they're just, I don't see that as a positive.
No. But it's a very nice.
Because they'll just like Ireland, they're like a shiny thing, like.
Yeah.
Where the old men are like, nah, fuck that shit. Yeah. I've seen this before.
Yeah.
Like, no, this time it's real. Like, shut up.
Right.
Yeah, it's not real.
But it's fascinating. It's a waiting game for people because all this older.
I've been recording this entire conversation.
Have you?
Yeah. So my name is Matt Baker, aka Matt Grange, and this is
Said Esfandiarfard.
If you could pronounce that.
ESFANDIARFARD.
Yeah, I'm going to put it on YouTube. I thought that was I want to save some memory, but people at home, I don't know if you can stay on to it that long. But we're out here in, where are we at?
We are in Ensenada.
Ensenada.
What is the name of this place?
La Marina Cove, huh? La Marina Cove.
Marina Cove.
And it's outside Ensenada.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So that's that, and have fun.
Beautiful.
That's a basic the speak of Plato or the chat at this particular location.